Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we learn to make a good mystery great. My name is Zara Altair, and today we're going to talk about conflict, your sleuth protagonist conflict, and why that is so important for your story. First, I want to thank my patrons on Patreon who support this video series and my mystery writing. If you'd like to join us, there are special perks, and there's a link in the description to find out more. Okay, so why is it so important to have conflict for your mystery detective protagonist, and what type of conflict should that be? That's what we're going to talk about today. So, what type of conflict is there? Is it physical? Is it emotional? Is it like a fight? Or is it mental? Like figuring out the clues before the police do? Whatever the case may be, it's important to keep your protagonist on their toes throughout your story. And how do you do that? Let's look at why you need to give your protagonist trouble. That's the whole reason for conflict, is trouble, right? A character without conflict is a boring character. So we avoid conflict in our daily life, but that is not what makes a good story. So, reader has no way to make some kind of empathic connection with your character if they aren't confronted with trouble. And you want your reader to care about your character, because that character, your sleuth, is your reader's guide through the mystery puzzle. So you can have a great plot and an intricate puzzle to solve, but if your reader doesn't care about your protagonist, they may not keep reading your book. They won't care about your story. So let's take a look at what is the nature of conflict in a story. What is story conflict? All right. In a story, first of all, conflict has to relate to the story. You can't just plunk in a conflict scene to make conflict. That won't work. All right. So it means you don't have a fight scene just to have a fight scene, because that's not really a conflict. Because bottom line, your reader doesn't care who wins the fight if they have no emotional investment in the characters. So like any scene, your conflict scene needs to move the story forward, and you want conflict to get your reader to care about your story. You really want conflict. Everything can't be cool for your sleuth. But how do I say this? The reader will care about your story when they care about your protagonist. So I want to read a recent quote from an interview with Troy DeVold, who is a producer, author, because he addressed the nature of story conflict, and I thought this was a really great thing to say. He said, "I think people misunderstand conflict. Conflict doesn't have to be people punching each other in the face on the boardwalk, as I used to say. Conflict is a person versus time. A person versus the vision of themselves. Their vision of themselves versus the reality of being themselves." And I just thought that was so great. So the conflict is all about what causes your character turmoil? What gives them a problem? And in a mystery, conflict challenges your protagonist's ability to solve the crime. And I like the idea of a character's vision of themselves versus the reality of being themselves. So just think of it as your character wants to solve the crime, but the reality is they're having a really difficult time. You could write a whole mystery with that as conflict without ever having a fight scene per se. All right. So one way to do that, to add conflict in your story and to think about it, is to think about what is happening right now in this scene. All right. So you want to concentrate on tripping up your protagonist right now. If you think of conflict this way, you'll be able to add conflict to each scene. We've talked about this before, how your scene needs some kind of conflict in the middle. And you don't have to wait for a big dramatic moment with your reader to get them involved in, get your character involved in conflict. You want to get your reader involved with your character, care about them, and keep caring about them. And that's why conflict in every scene is so important. So, I mean, there's many, many, many ways you can add conflict to your mystery. It occurs in crime fiction in two ways, essentially. Conflict affecting your protagonist's personal life, and conflict that's thrown into the investigation, and these can cross over and cause a multitude of problems for your protagonist. There's no way to make an investigation run smoothly from start to finish. I mean, this is true in real life, and it's definitely true in your mystery novel. There have to be setbacks, obstacles standing in the way of your sleuth, and you need to create those problems, both personal and professional. Right? So there are interior conflicts, the struggle that your character has within themselves, such as moral and ethical dilemmas, and there's conflict with others, the people who impede both their personal and their professional life. It's just sparking some ideas for conflict. I hope so. So your aim is to make your character's life difficult and to heap problems on them, and to create tension by placing them in danger. And this doesn't necessarily mean physical danger. That can be a threat to their investigation, a threat to their love life. That's just you creating problems for your protagonist. All right. So let's look at some examples of the two types of conflict. All right, the personal and the professional, and these are just kind of what would I say, like conflict prompts, I guess you could call them. Conflict prompts will give you ideas of what could be a personal problem and what could be a professional problem. So let's look at personal conflict first, because that's one sure way to get your reader caring about your protagonist, all right? So, for example, there could be a new relationship, or a former lover all of a sudden comes back in their life, or there's an estranged child who gives them worry or comes back and causes trouble. There's so many ways you can deal with that estranged child. Or another source of conflict is because they're so involved in their profession, say a law enforcement officer, they don't have time for their family, and this can cause some problems as well. They can also have personally physical illness or an injury or a disability. For example, many law enforcement people have to deal with post-traumatic stress because they experience so many very awful things. So that can be another conflict that your character has to deal with their own emotions. Oh my gosh. Okay. so another personal conflict could be personal goals outside of work that are either getting in the way of their investigation, or those goals themselves are not being met. So they have a personal disappointment, but the disappointment's outside of the puzzle solving, but they have a personal disappointment. If any kind of conflict, personal conflict, is going to get your reader to care about your detective, all right? And then, of course, there's all kinds of investigatory conflict as well. So I'm just highlight some. Once again, these are just prompts. I'm sure you can think of others, but just get the idea of that there are personal conflicts and there are professional conflicts, all right? So with an investigatory conflict, it can be alibis that seem totally unbreakable. It feels like the right person, but their alibi seems totally solid. A lack of evidence at the beginning of the case. In other words, at the start, there just seem to be no clues. There's conflict with professional colleagues, and that includes things like racism or sexism at the workplace, conflict within the system itself, with judges who won't sign a warrant, for instance, or the forensic team just doesn't get them the answers they need from evidence. Actually, the physical setting can cause conflict to the investigation. Say, for instance, a body's found outside, it rains or snows, or whatever, and a lot of evidence gets washed away. And then there's conflict with the media, the journalists. Are they interpreting, and that is not a word. Are they interpreting what your detective is doing in the correct manner or the incorrect manner, publishing stories that aren't true, publishing information that shouldn't be out while the investigation is ongoing. So there's conflict with the media. There can be a witness completely changing their statement, and everything that your detective they knew about from this witness completely changes. There could be mistakes in the police procedures, especially at the beginning. Somebody overlooks something, somebody in the forensic team, somebody from the coroner's team. Lots of things can go wrong at the beginning. And then, of course, there's what we think of, what many people think of as conflict. There's actual danger doing the investigation. There can be a fight or a chase or the proverbial dark basement or dark warehouse kind of thing. All right. As far as your detective is concerned, they may have a narrow focus on who they think is the prime suspect, and that's not the case at all. Okay, those are just a few. These are prompts to get you going, thinking about what type of conflict you use in your mystery. Your job as a writer is to choose your conflicts and heap on trouble. That's your job. And conflict is an important element in any story, and it's just absolutely vital in a mystery. And the more complex conflicts you create for your sleuth, the better. So you want to choose your conflicts and have fun giving your sleuth trouble. Okay, I hope that helps. It's just you need conflict, but you need real conflict, and not oh, I need conflict, so I need a fight scene. That's not how you create conflict. So I hope those prompts really help you thinking about conflict is going to involve your reader and get them to care about your sleuth and the puzzle they have to solve. Okay, once again, I want to thank Audible for supporting this video series, and I love Audible. I listen to a lot of mysteries on Audible. It's a great way to get in touch. You can bookmark things that you think are important as you're listening. And if you haven't tried listening to stories, there's a link in the description below for a 30-day free trial. I encourage you to give it a try. I enjoy it a lot. You can listen while you're doing other things. You can, like, I'm out in the yard a lot, and so I can listen while you're out in the yard, but you can also listen while you're driving, listen while you're doing dishes, whatever. And it's just a great way to experience mysteries and other stories. All right, thank you so much for being here. I hope these prompts helped, and keep writing.